La 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 la, wait till I get my money right.
Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Joe Malone. I am a former Special Operations Marine, and I now teach people how they can keep themselves safe against violent crime. So tonight's topic we're going to talk about is going to be awareness. We're going to dive into some key features that create awareness, why we've lost our awareness, and then give you a really simple tool frame to increase your own general awareness every day in your ordinary life. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to our general awareness is why we have lost it so much. And what happens in our brain when we look at our cell phones is that we get this release of feel-good chemicals. In particular, we're talking about dopamine, serotonin. And what that does is that creates this physical sensation in the body, but also like a mental and emotional sensation, because we usually tie happy emotions to looking at our cell phone due to the past previous experiences of receiving likes on social media or a text message that we've been waiting for, things of that nature. So when we have so many years and, over a decade now, I think, of really solidifying those neural pathways in the brain, we start to create an addiction. If you haven't seen The Social Dilemma, I highly recommend that you check it out. It is an incredible documentary where it talks about how the people who programmed phones to look sleek and slender make us feel a certain way, the way that the screen illuminates, the way that the bubbles look. It's all designed to resonate with us neurologically. And they themselves, Twitter, Facebook, Google, are even addicted now to their own creation. And so the documentary is the sum total of them all coming together saying, look, like, this is a big problem. I digress too. Why are we always looking at our cell phones? It's because it produces a feel-good chemical concoction within our bodies, and we like to feel good as human beings. The other part to this is that it gets compounded with the increased social anxiety that we see nowadays because of COVID and everybody going remote and all the political tensions between one another. We've really grown isolated as a human race, and not just as a society in America, which definitely probably the more detrimental piece, if you ask me. We've just never reached this period of time that I could think of from what I've studied in history, but maybe we have. My point is that we're disconnected, we're isolated from one another, and that creates and breeds fear and social anxiety. So when we go to a place like a store and we pull our car up into the parking lot, we get out of our car, and then all of a sudden we're just looking into our phone as we're meandering half aimlessly through a really dangerous area, or what I like to call a transitory place, where there's a lot of transient activity, high risk zone. We're stuck into our cell phone, our mobile device. Why? There's real significant dangers around us, and yet we happen to find ourselves just staring at our phone, not even doing anything. Well, it's because that little bit of social anxiety, whether we feel it consciously or subconsciously, a lot or a little, even if you get the smallest tinge of it, your body is naturally going to be reflexing to that little blue screen within your pocket because it makes you feel good. It produces the feel-good chemicals, which will cancel out all the nerve-wracking chemicals like cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline, various other chemicals that I don't know because I'm not a neurologist. So if you are a neurologist, please hit me up. I would love to learn much more about the deep specifics of the science behind these things. With the compounded social anxiety and the fact that we can receive a feel-good chemical concoction out of our phone just from pulling it out of our pocket. And in order to neutralize those anxiety-driven chemicals that were being released, we just stare into our blue screen and we get this little shot of heroin. It makes us feel calmer, but it creates a great level of ignorance to the world around us. And when criminals are looking at us, it's a joke. Everybody's ripe for the picking these days because nobody's aware of their surroundings whatsoever. So now that we understand a little bit about how the brain functions, how it releases dopamine whenever we look at our cell phone, how our cell phones are functioning and designed to keep us addicted to them. That's why we just stare at them sometimes and you're like, what am I even doing on this, right? There's a beautiful world around me, it's fall. That's because they're designed to do that. And the more that we do that, the more that we anticipate those amazing big text messages, the more emotion that we happen to associate with our cell phones and the things that take place on them, Facebook and pictures and YouTube channels, then we're just solidifying those neural pathways even greater in the brain, which create a greater sense of ignorance of our surrounding environment. Furthermore, it also debilitates our ability to think and process the reason why we're feeling social anxiety to begin with. Usually we confront that social anxiety by confronting the circumstances surrounding us by being aware of them, looking around us. So I have a saying, it's called, if I could hit them with a stone, then I should stay off my phone. And what that means is, if I took a stone, nothing crazy, just about, size of my iPod pods here, and I threw that stone, wherever that stone would land, not just on the fly, but just in general, wherever it would land, probably, within 100 feet. If there's people within that ring around me of distance, then I should definitely know who they are and what it is that they're doing, especially if I have children with me. It's totally normal to just look over at somebody and look at them in the face and give them a smile and a nod. When you do that, you're contributing positivity to society. You're letting people know that you're an okay person. That doesn't say that you're weak when you see someone and you go, hey, what's going on? Actually, what I've learned and discovered is that most times people will actually nod and say it right back to you, because most people are still good, but we don't get taught that anymore. And we get force-fed this narrative that everybody's against one another, when the reality is that 6 out of 10 times people are going to look right back at you and nod and say, hey, how are you doing? And it's going to make them feel better about society as well. So we're really affecting many things and many people's attitudes when we just simply look at somebody, smile, and give a nod. About 2 or 3 other people will intend to give you the smile and the nod back, but they just probably won't do it in a quick enough time frame, because maybe they're in passing or they didn't expect you to do that because nobody's done that to them for a while. Hell, I remember we weren't even opening doors open for one another during COVID. It was like first initial wave. And I'll never forget thinking there was this group of ladies who were a little bit older than me, and I opened up the door for them and they all just stood there outside staring at me like, well, are you gonna go? And I was just like, well, okay. A little confused, but it was really sad. So about 1 or 2 people actually are going to be violent criminals, right? About 10%, maybe 20% of the population will be violent criminals. And those people are going to stand out a lot more to us whenever we are aware of our surroundings within the stone's throw, whenever we do look at people, and whenever we are just seeing them for who they are. We're not looking only for the good in people, but we're just seeing the good that is present by being aware. So how do we put all these pieces together? And we'll even talk about a few more added benefits about looking people in the eyes and how we don't escalate people's emotions with energetic exchange just by looking at them for about 1.2 seconds. Some things that we could do in order to mitigate that energetic exchange if we're looking at somebody more thoroughly because maybe they're making us feel uncomfortable. We'll talk more about that later. How do we increase our general awareness? Well, there's a few things that we could do that are really, really simple. One is recognize why it is that you're staring at your phone all the time. You feel it vibrating in your pocket. It's because your body's hoping for that sensation of feeling good. Maybe there's some other things associated with that. I don't know, radiation, radio frequencies, I'm not too sure. I feel it all the time. But why are we staring at our phones? They release feel-good chemicals, feel-good concoctions, okay? It reduces the anxiety or the fear circuitry chemicals that are being released, those neurochemicals within the body when we feel a sense of social anxiety. So if we know why we're looking at our phone and when we're looking at our phone, we need to then identify who is in these transitory places or in these high-risk areas. So if you're in a parking lot and you pull your phone out, then you need to understand and feel, why am I looking at my phone here? Wow, it's because I'm addicted to it. I should just put it back in my pocket for a second and now become aware of my surroundings. When you tell yourself, when you consciously recognize that you are looking at your phone in a relatively high-risk area, i.e. parking lot, sidewalk, alleyway, public area in general, a mall, these are high transit areas, lots of transient activity, gas stations. So you shouldn't be sucked in and glued into your phone. When you make the conscious recognition that you are sucked into your phone in one of these transitory places, you just put it back in your pocket. What we're doing now is we're utilizing neuroplasticity. Now, I don't know if we're necessarily using it in the fullest of its capacity, right? But what I do know is that we are consciously telling our brains to behave differently based off of a set of circumstances that are triggered by an action, behavior, or a feeling. So when we do that, what we begin to do is we begin to prune away. It's called neural pruning. Neuroplasticity. When we change, neural pruning is when we break the old pattern within the brain. Everything that we do is a circuitry in the brain. Every single thing, thought, emotion, everything is a path, physical path within our amazing brain structure. Supposedly it has more connections than stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Unfathomable. And that's just what we know about it. But I digress. When we consciously make that choice to say, I'm not going to be on my phone because I'm in a dangerous place, relatively, put it in our pocket, we're pruning the bad habit, creating the new habit, therefore formulating new pathways and patterns within the brain that will promote positive awareness behavior in the future because it becomes a habit. Our brain burns more calories per ounce of weight, or something like that, than any other thing in our body. And it's because when we're consciously thinking. So if the brain doesn't have to consciously think about something and the neural pathway is solidified to the point where it could pass information even in high stress environments or in the nullified, like dumb, primitive portion of our brain functioning types of environments, because when we get scared or fight, flight, life or death, we stop thinking critically on the outer neocortex and it comes back down into the primitive basal ganglia part of the brain. It's just what's kept us alive for so long and varying types of society and culture. But when we do things enough, it'll solidify those neural pathways in the brain that are capable of still sending transmissions and signals to some degree in those crazy high stress environments while everything else shuts down. When it reaches that point, the brain will put that into what's known as the subconscious. And the subconscious mind, we don't need to think consciously about it. We just do things habitually. Like driving, you space out, all of a sudden you're at work, you're at home, you're at school, whatever. You're like, wow, how did I even get here? That's crazy. That is the subconscious mind in action. And most of what we do is actually influenced by the subconscious mind. If you check it out, there's varying studies, but I think it's about like 90-95% based off of what I've experienced and read. So if we can become consciously aware and recognize of when we are stuck into our cell phones and why we're stuck into our cell phones, they release feel-good chemicals. Why am I looking at it in a parking lot as I'm walking into the store? Why am I looking at it at a mall where there's people all over the place? Why am I looking at it at the gas station pump while filling up my gas station, filling up my car at the gas station? It's because of the fact that we want to mitigate these anxiety, riddled chemicals, and we want, or these chemicals that create or riddle us with anxiety, and we want to create feel-good, calming chemicals, get that shot of feel-good substance coming out of the brain by looking at the cell phone because we associate it with the cell phone. Put it in the pocket, walk to your goal, and then step to the side once you get inside of the building and check out what you got to check out. That is creating good, positive safety habits. When we create good, positive safety habits and we're aware of our surroundings, we program that into the subconscious mind. When we program that into the subconscious mind and we behave subconsciously in that manner, now we have mastered general safety awareness. And we'll be able to pick up and identify, because our brain will be primed to these things. The baseline is what we call the normal behavior for an environment around us. There's a difference between environment and ecosystem. I can go into that at a different time, but environment is the behavioral circumstances where the ecosystem is the purpose-driven circumstances. So like your kitchen could be an ecosystem, your living room can be an ecosystem, but the park down the street can also be an ecosystem. With all can have good or bad environments, it just varies. But my point is this, is that the baseline is the normal behavioral pattern within that area around you. So if you're at a gas station, then people are at their cars filling up their pumps or going inside and getting some small retail items. When a vehicle blasting loud, aggressive music with windows so dark you can't even see into them, and it looks like it's been in multiple accidents, and everybody else has like Mercedes-Benzes in the gas station, that's anomalous behavior, disruption in the baseline. Your subconscious mind will become primed and attuned to these things, and you'll have greater what we call spatial awareness. Like I could tell how far my hands are from my head right now. Well, you start to become more aware of and attuned to your surroundings and where things are in relativity to you. So it allows you to create greater distance from threats by being aware. And distance in times of life-threatening situations equals time, which equals safety. So the farther you are from a threat, the more time you have to actually think and perform as consciously as possible, depending on what you've learned and practiced and baseline fundamentals. And then that also creates greater safety for us, distance and time. Now, after we've programmed the subconscious mind based off of those good repetitive habits and we become more attuned to our surroundings, this is where we really start to see some amazing growth within our general safety awareness. We can tell where the kids are at and we can corral them much easier while kind of multitasking. I don't like to multitask, but we can, when we're next to like a railroad track at a store parking lot, there's one down the road from my house where, you'll be more aware of and more attuned to the kids and your surroundings and the people passing you by. You'll be able to pick out anomalous behavior much more easily and then keep yourself safer from things like being a victim of violent crime. And it all really just starts with understanding first and foremost, why do we look at our cell phones so much? It's because they make us feel good. Even if you don't feel this amazing, elated, tingly feeling in your body, there's this minimal input where it's just like, oop, feels good. Oop, feels good. And if you can't consciously recognize it for whatever various reasons, your body does. And so therefore, it's going to now have you perform in a way just like an addict does to meet the needs of that physical form, that physical body. And there's a lot of science about how when you get dopamine, when you drop, you're always going to be lower than where you started. and much more information for other people on that. Like Andrew Huberman is a really good resource, instructor and teacher, and you should definitely check him out if you want to learn some more specifics. Like I said, if you're a neurologist, hit me up because I'd love to also get other perspectives as well. But my point is this, is that just by being aware of why we look at our phones, just by knowing of why we're looking at our phones, where we're looking at them in these transitory places like parking lots, gas stations, public buildings, and then making the conscious choice to actually put it back, put it away, and then go to our objective or our goal or our errand for the day, and then finding a safe spot to stand off to the side and then open it up and look at it. We're rewiring the brain to become much more conscious and aware of our environment. And then once we do it enough, we will habitually no longer put ourselves at risk in those types of areas, and we will become even greater or become even more attuned with a greater ability to identify things like anomalous or nefarious or obvious criminal or potentially harmful behaviors, which will set a great example for our family, our kids, our loved ones. We will impress that upon them, which mitigates their likelihood for being a victim of violent crime later on in their life. Because the only way that we'll ever be able to truly mitigate and reduce violent crime is when we all can become aware for one another by force of habit, and when we all learn how to actually take care of ourselves and defend ourselves in these situations and these circumstances, up into with lethal force. It's not cool to kill somebody. It's not cool to talk about, killing somebody. But the reality of it is that people are taking that choice away from us when they come and attack us. So you have two options. You can either be victimized and lose a piece of yourself if you survive, and not be as good of a father, not be as good of as loving as a mother, not as much of a friend or a loved one, because you're missing a piece of your soul because you allowed yourself to get victimized by some violent criminal. Or you can empower yourself with skill and knowledge, and good skill and good knowledge, and build upon that and have these types of skill sets programmed into your subconscious mind that you can impress upon your children as you grow older, keeping them safe and allowing them to see the great example you lead, having much respect for you and appreciation for teaching them these ways, and ultimately just contributing to a greater society. So by being aware of our surroundings, we could be a little bit more positive. We can make other people recognize the good that is within us because we're making small eye contact, smile and nodding, and we just happen to see the situation, the circumstances unfolding around us. So I hope you find that helpful when it comes to how to increase your general awareness. Recognize why you look at your phone. Recognize when you're looking at your phone that you're not in a safe place to do so. Put it away and consciously move forward with your goals for the day. And get somewhere safe, stand off to the side, and then consciously pull your phone out. And then you consciously happen to look through your messages or whatever it is, your notes. That will be one of the greatest, most fundamental and detrimental pieces to you keeping yourself safe and your family safe against violent crime that you can possibly do and start off with. It's super easy, it's super simple. It's just a matter of consciously being aware of it and then putting it in your pocket and waiting for an extra 30 seconds while you walk inside the building. All right, take care, stay safe, always be kind. Let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, my name is Joe Malone. I'm a former Special Operations Marine, and my goal is to help people be safe against violent crime. Thanks.